Every time we look at what is going on inside Rangers right now, it feels like the club is living through one of those phases where excitement and instability walk side by side. Now, the atmosphere around IBROX has lifted since Danny Roll walked through the door, because you can actually see a structure taking shape. You can feel the players responding to him, and the results in the league are starting to show. 3 straight Premiership wins, each one bringing a little more confidence, each one sharpening that sense that maybe, just maybe, the season is still alive. That win over Dundee, 3 goals to the good, looked like the players finally clicking into gear under the new boss, even if the mountain they need to climb in Europe tells a very different story. The Europa League has been brutal so far. 0 points, 2 defeats, and performances that made it clear how far the group had fallen before Roll even had the chance to stamp his ideas properly. Getting knocked out of the League Cup by Celtic did not help either, especially with that red card making an already difficult afternoon even harder. But the reality is that Roll inherited a puzzle with missing pieces and mismatched edges, and he is still figuring out which parts can stay on the table and which ones need to be replaced. Some players have grabbed that fresh start with both hands. Jack Butland continues to look like a wall in goal. James Tavernier is stepping up in the big moments as usual. John Souttar is showing the form fans hoped to see consistently. And Nicholas Raskin, when fit, brings that bite and urgency Rangers have lacked in the middle of the park. Even Youssef Chamiti, the big money striker, is starting to feel trusted in a way he never did early in the season. But for every player rising under the new regime, there is another one slipping further down the pecking order, and that is where things start to get uncomfortable, because Rangers have been down this road before. They have had signings arrive with noise, potential, glowing scouting reports, only for everything to fall apart once the real pressure begins. Oscar Cortez is the clearest example. This was a kid who arrived with all the hype a young South American talent could bring. He shone in youth internationals. He had clips flying around social media, and the club locked him in with a fee that felt like a real investment for the future. But between injuries, inconsistency, and a style that never fully settled into Scottish football, his time at IBROX fizzled out to the point where a loan move became the only way to keep his career from stalling completely. No one wants to see another player go the same way, yet the warning signs are there for Oliver Antman. And it is such a strange situation because the lad could not have started his Rangers journey any better. The moment he stepped onto the pitch after landing in Glasgow, he looked like he had been part of the squad for months. The Champions League qualifier against Victoria Plizen was electric. 2 assists, non-stop movement, clever passing, the kind of creativity Rangers have been crying out for. Supporters instantly bought into his style, thinking the club had unearthed a gem from the Dutch league who could change the dynamic of the attack. His numbers in the Netherlands backed that up. The boy created chances like it was second nature, racking up assists for fun, and doing all of this in a team that was punching above its weight. When someone puts up those kinds of stats outside one of the big Dutch sides, you expect that confidence and freedom to translate into the Scottish game, especially in a side that dominates possession most weeks. Even the analysts and scouts were talking him up as someone capable of unlocking defenses, someone with spark, someone ready to grow. But football can turn quickly, and at Rangers it seems to turn even faster. After that explosive debut, Antman's influence faded. The final ball stopped landing, the rhythm disappeared, and suddenly he was no longer one of the first names on the team sheet. Before long, he was watching more matches from the bench than from the pitch. Under Roll, things have not improved. He started in the manager's first match, but since then he has drifted further into the background, the kind of quiet slide that supporters notice long before the official line acknowledges it. Roll's change of system only makes life harder for players in Antman's situation. The 3-4-3 setup trims the number of attacking slots, and every one of those positions now has its own fierce competition. Chermiti is getting minutes. Danilo is fighting for a permanent place. Young Mikey Moore is stepping up and scoring. JD Gassama has found form at the perfect time. With all of them producing, it becomes difficult for a player like Antman to force his way back in, even if his technical quality is clear whenever he gets a rare touch of the ball, and that is where the comparison to Cortez begins to creep in. Different players, different circumstances, but the same familiar pattern. Arrive with fanfare, start brightly, then slowly fade from view until a lone move becomes the inevitable next step. Antman is not injured. He is not unavailable. He is simply not being used. And at a club like Rangers, once the momentum shifts away from you, it can be extremely hard to pull it back. A January move, temporary or otherwise, may already be on the table if nothing changes in the coming weeks. Meanwhile, Roll is already preparing for bigger structural decisions because the future of the midfield could soon be shaken up in a major way. Nicholas Raskin is one of the few players who looked guaranteed to be part of the long-term rebuild, someone the manager trusts, someone the fan base wants to see as a central figure. But the reality of football finances does not care about sentiment. Interest from Italy and England is growing, and if the ownership receive an offer too big to turn down, the club will have a serious decision to make. Losing Raskin would be a major blow, especially given how badly he was handled before Roll restored him, but the board may see an opportunity they cannot ignore. And that is why the name Shay Charles has suddenly become such a hot topic among supporters. If Raskin does go, Rangers cannot afford to get the replacement wrong, and Charles is one of the few names who genuinely fits the profile of someone who could step in without lowering the level. Roll knows him well, trusts him, and believes in his ability to grow even further. Charles has been developing rapidly in the English Championship, showing the kind of mix between defensive discipline, ball-carrying strength, and progressive play that Roll wants at the heart of his team. A player like that does not come cheap, but he fits the mold of someone who could anchor the midfield for years if the club manages to bring him in. The thing about Shay Charles is that he is not just another midfielder passing through the championship hoping for a lucky break. You can see his development every time he steps onto the pitch. The way he reads danger early, the way he moves into pockets to receive under pressure, the way he glides forward with the ball when the midfield needs an outlet. He carries himself like someone who has already tasted top-level environments, which makes sense considering where he was shaped. Coming through at Manchester City means you pick up habits that do not wash away easily, and you can spot that polish in the little details of his game. His engine is enormous, the kind of stamina that allows him to play as a holding midfielder without becoming just a destroyer. He loves the dirty work, the tackles, the interceptions, the moments where the ball breaks loose and someone needs to step in with conviction. But he is not limited to that. There is a calmness to his passing, a willingness to take risks when the space opens, a confidence to drive the play forward instead of taking the safe sideways option. That blend is exactly what Roll wants in the middle of the park, and it is why the manager is pushing the club to explore the possibility early rather than waiting until the summer. Southampton know his value, which is why this is not the kind of transfer that sneaks under the radar. They invested heavily in him, and they have no intention of watching him walk out the door for nothing. But the situation around him is shifting. The club are still figuring out their next long-term manager, and every new coach brings their own ideas of what the midfield should look like. If the incoming manager decides that Charles is not a perfect tactical fit, or if the player himself feels that now is the time to make the jump into a bigger role elsewhere, then an opportunity opens. Rangers will not be the only club circling, but they might be the club who can offer the clearest path to becoming a centerpiece rather than a rotation option. And that is the kind of project Roll is quietly building. It is not about chasing short-term bursts of form or throwing money at problems. It is about shaping a squad that understands the kind of football he wants to play. You can already see the early outline, the back line pushed higher, the press becoming more coordinated, the ball moving faster through the midfield, the attackers asked to be more unpredictable rather than just direct. To make this work long-term, he needs a midfielder who can set the tempo, who can read the flow of the game, and keep the team from getting stretched. Charles looks like someone who thrives in exactly that sort of responsibility. The supporters know how important that position is. They have seen what happens when the midfield loses control, when matches slip away because no one can put a foot on the ball or stop a counter at the source. They have watched players come in with hype and leave without leaving a trace. That is why the idea of losing Raskin stings. Even when he is not at his absolute best, he brings a sharpness that is hard to replace. But football does not pause for emotional attachment, and if a major offer arrives, Rangers will need to have a plan ready. Charles feels like the plan that makes the most sense. But the story does not end there, because this is all happening while the squad still feels unsettled. Players who were starting months ago are suddenly drifting out of the team. Others are appearing from nowhere and forcing their way into the picture. Young talents are stepping up. Senior players are fighting to prove they belong in the new project. It is a period of transition, and transition always comes with tension. You only need to look at the forward line to see that clearly. Antman is the perfect example of the uncertainty that comes with a new direction. He is not playing badly. He has not had fallouts. He has not struggled with injuries. He just suddenly finds himself squeezed out by players who suit the manager's current plan better. That is the cruel side of football. A bright start buys patience, but it does not guarantee time. Antman has the technical ability to contribute, but if he keeps getting only 5 or 10 minutes here and there, he will not find rhythm. And when you lose rhythm at a club with expectations like Rangers, rumours are never far behind. The question now is what happens next. Is there still room for him in the system if he adjusts, or is he already too far down the list once everyone is fit and firing? January becomes a crossroads. Roll is too pragmatic to hold onto a player he cannot use, and Rangers have been more open in recent windows to temporary moves that allow players to reset somewhere else. If Antman does go out on loan, he will not be the first, and he certainly will not be the last. The only thing that matters is whether he still has a future beyond the loan, or whether he becomes another expensive signing whose time in Glasgow ends before he ever truly settles. All of this unfolds against a backdrop where the club are trying to rebuild identity as much as they are trying to rebuild the squad. The fans want a team that presses with purpose, that keeps the ball with intent, that plays with confidence even in tight matches. Roll has the ideas and the personality to deliver that, but the squad he inherited is not the squad he needs to do it long term. That is why these decisions matter so much. If the club choose to cash in on Raskin, they need someone who can come in and immediately take responsibility. If Antman is going to fall away, they need to replace his creativity with someone who brings consistency. If certain players are going to thrive under this new style, the manager needs to back them and build around them. Rangers do not have the luxury of waiting seasons for everything to click. Supporters want progress now, and they want to feel like the club is heading in the right direction, even if the journey is still at the beginning. That is where signings like Charles become more than football decisions. They become statements. Statements that say the club is planning ahead, that the rebuild is not random, that there is a clear structure forming around the manager's philosophy. Before we continue, make sure to subscribe to our channel and turn on notifications to get all the exclusive news about Rangers FC. Don't overlook any details about your beloved team. It's crucial for Rangers FC fans. A hush fell over Govan before the noise erupted like a storm rolling in from the Clyde. Word drifted out of nowhere, whispered first in backstreet boozers, then shouted over pints, then fired across supporters' chats with the certainty of gospel. Scott McTominay, the midfield enforcer of Old Trafford, could be on the brink of a shock move to Rangers. It sounded too wild, too steeped in fantasy to take seriously, yet the rumor gathered pace with the stubborn weight of something that refuses to be dismissed. By midday, the chatter had grown into a full-throated roar, with fans swearing blind that conversations had taken place, bridges had been crossed, and that the Scotland international was closer to IBROX than anyone might have imagined even a fortnight ago. No one close to the club is saying a word, which, of course, only fuels the speculation. Silence in this part of Glasgow is rarely taken as denial. Instead, it is treated like a wink, a nudge, a tacit admission that something big is simmering behind the scenes. And if McTominay truly is the name on the lips of the board, the coaching staff, and the transfer team, it would be a move of seismic proportions. Supporters can already picture him in royal blue, sleeves rolled, chest out, driving into tackles with that familiar blend of grit and thunder. Many reckon he's the sort of player who would walk straight into the spine of the team, the sort who relishes noise, pressure, and expectation, qualities that define life at IBROX as much as the architecture itself. Of course, nothing has been confirmed. For now, it remains a rumble, a murmur, a story carried on the wind swirling above Edmiston Drive. But it's hard to ignore the electricity in the air, the sense that something extraordinary could be edging closer, and if the whispers prove true, it may just go down as one of the most jaw-dropping transfer twists to stir the blue half of Glasgow in years. Greetings, fans. Make sure to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel, as it's greatly appreciated by Rangers FC. And don't forget to share your thoughts on the news in the comments section below. Until the next video, stay tuned.